Most companies strive to build customer loyalty, but what are they really looking for? We've gathered 3 loyalty experts for a one-to-one roundtable discussion on the different types of customer loyalty that exist and what companies can really do to create and improve it. Please welcome Professor John Daly of the University of Texas, Liz Miller of the CMO Council, and Jill Noblett, former Senior Vice President of Loyalty at Wyndham Hotels. Jill, let's start with you.
How would you say behavioral loyalty is different than emotional loyalty?
Behavioral loyalty is probably more about obviously what you do. It's getting someone to actually do something repeatedly or with some sort of frequency, or whenever they're making a product service selection that they actively seek out your product or service. And I think emotional loyalty is probably more about the feeling, obviously, and that you get and the experience that you get with that product and service. I would probably differentiate the two. It's more about it's experiential emotional. So what did you associate with that product or service when you experienced it? So from a definition perspective, I think that's how I'd differentiate the two.
John, being a professor and seeing a lot of different companies, do you have another perspective on the idea of behavioral versus emotional loyalty?
Yeah, behavioral loyalty is simply an action. Do you keep reappearing? For example, in a customer case, you can actually be behaviorally loyal and not emotionally loyal, and you can be emotionally loyal but not behaviorally loyal. I can make anyone emotionally loyal. I can make anyone behaviorally loyal. The question is, can you do both? You also want to make sure they're profitably loyal, which is a third dimension we're studying now. Profitably loyal is different than behavioral or emotional loyal.
Can you explain a little bit by what you mean of profitably loyal?
Profitable customers make up only about 20% of a company's customers. Break-even customers make up about 60%, and about 20% of your customers are actually unprofitable. If you do a cost of customer analysis, you find that some customers are actually too expensive to keep. So the goal is you want people to like you. That's the emotional loyalty. Be there, behavioral loyalty, but also help you make money. My utility I am behaviorally loyal to. I'm not necessarily emotionally loyal because I have no choice. Hopefully I'm profitable to my utility in some good sense. I need my heat and my light. But you've got to make those distinctions. Hotels are a classic case in that basis. You can find sales in hotels. Many guests cost hotels money. They've actually reduced the price so much they can't make money on the thing. If there's only one hotel in town, I'm going to be behaviorally loyal regardless of the profit or satisfaction. So there are really 3 very different dimensions, and a successful company has to look at all 3 of those things and decide where they want to put their emphasis. It's equivalent from a marketing perspective between margin and market share. You've got to make a distinction sometimes, understanding going for one can actually hurt the other.
And Liz, what are your thoughts on the definitions and the importances of these distinctions?
When you talk about emotional loyalty, for the most part, you're talking about something that is a fairly loose definition, something that is usually based on satisfaction, on a knee-jerk reaction, someone saw something they liked, there was a puppy in an ad. I think that a lot of times the emotional loyalty is what we tend to rely on, or what's easiest to tap into, because it's easiest to get a very quick reaction to. You don't have to do exactly what John just said, which is segment and really begin to understand your audience and determine who is an advocate, who is profitable, and who is that customer that is going to have the maximum customer lifetime value across their experiences with your brand. But to get that emotional loyalty, it's quite simple. For a lot of people, you create a new campaign that pulls on the heartstrings, and all of a sudden everyone remembers your ad, remembers your name, remembers your brand. So I think that from a marketer's perspective, we're now becoming more savvy, and we're quite frankly in a more critical age now for whether it's our budget or senior level mandates to drive our brand and grow business, to where we have to look at that behavioral loyalty or even advocacy. And I think the question really becomes, is loyalty the right word? Because I think for a lot of us, we tend to think and skew the line between loyalty and, say, satisfactions, rewards, perks, clubs, etc. But what we're really looking for is that profitable customer who is an advocate and who is a repeatable, sustainable, predictable profit for our brand.
John, I just wanted to get your thoughts. Do you even see companies defining loyalty? Are they all thinking of it in terms of behavior or emotion?
Well, historically, it was an emotional loyalty thing. Customer satisfaction research 25 years ago focused primarily on emotional, what you're calling emotional loyalty, makes them happy. The nice thing about emotional loyalty, it does create forgiveness. If you're emotionally attached to an organization, you will actually forgive them when they make mistakes. You'll attribute failures oftentimes to situations as opposed to the organization. Emotional loyalty creates a sense of commitment, if that makes sense, to the organization. The behavioral, it became the trend probably about 10 years ago in the research, where we started looking at basically, we made up a 2x2 matrix, if you will, of what you're calling emotional versus behavioral loyalty. And what we found is companies started saying, well, it's great to have people that love us, but are they showing up all the time? Are they willingly show up? And most recently, people have been saying, as I said, about in that trouble with behavioral loyalty, it quickly becomes a price-sensitive thing. It becomes a location thing. It becomes a convenience thing. Behavioral is convenience. Profitability becomes the most crucial one now, and people are now starting to look at profitable customers. Probably started with Best Buy's customer centricity program, where they started identifying which customers actually allowed them to make a profit. In terms of non-academic research, it probably started with Best Buy's customer centricity program about 5 years ago. And with profitability, you get two things. You get a deep sense of commitment in terms of, I want to make this company successful. I want them to have a profit. And also a good understanding of why the company has that profit base. What's the purpose of that company? Why it's doing what it's doing. So I think companies are doing all three. I think all are important, by the way. They all interact with each other, but you can make a triangle, if you will, and they tend to extend out in different directions based upon the industry. In a B2B environment, it's more profitability. B2C, they've typically focused on emotional as well as behavioral. I think the big trend now is profitability, although it's hard to get to that sometimes for companies. They don't like the fact that we may have a customer we don't particularly like who actually makes us very profitable, and we have a customer we really like who actually costs us money on a regular basis.
Liz, where are companies missing the mark now in their loyalty strategy?
We're missing the component of when we're going through and doing the segmentation and making those investments and going into understanding how to potentially leverage both the emotional and the behavioral and the profitable side of loyalty. It's the message that's coming across and the ask that a lot of these brands are giving just simply don't match what that customer data probably is. We're really, unfortunately, kind of chasing a lot of times potentially the wrong customer. So in the B2C world, we're seeing a lot of emphasis, focus, and spend on the emotional, on the behavioral, but not a lot of depth and analysis into the profitable side. There certainly are some standouts. Best Buy, a great example. DirecTV has done a lot of work in this area. On the B2B side, we tend to look at more of the profit side, I think, more heavily right now, because I think that is really what's driving it. Unfortunately, again, we're not looking at the total picture, right? We're not looking at that triangle, as John's just mentioned. So we tend to look at kind of one area or the other. What's driving all of this, of course, is access to that customer insight and that customer data. And unfortunately for marketing, that's probably the one thing that seems to be the most elusive part of this entire equation.
John, here are some recommendations so far. Do you have any other recommendations that companies might want to do? Really,
the focus upon building more customer support is one important thing, and both people have talked about that, I think, eloquently. The other thing I think companies are beginning to look at is the cost of customers, managing costs more than managing, stop the seduction and manage costs better. Cost management becomes an important thing. Amazon, for example, with their cost of contact exercise is probably a classic one. If we reduce the number of contacts we have with a customer, the more profitable that customer becomes. Designing systems so the customer doesn't even need to talk to us, a customer call into a customer support operation for a company actually takes away the profitability almost immediately. So can we design systems where web pages, for example, are so clear customers don't have to call with us? Can we design sales processes where we don't have to actually interact directly in terms of a costly with a customer who's not generally profitable?
Liz, do you have any other recommendations?
It's really about driving and managing and building a customer experience and understanding what your customer is coming to you to buy or to experience, and managing that to the best of your abilities, whether that is through a robust service organization, whether that is through something as simple as meeting their expectations. I think customer experience is certainly something that we all really need to be mindful of and understand that it is our role as marketers to really be kind of amplifying and driving that.
So, Jill, I'm going to leave you with the last word. Do you have any other final recommendations for companies looking to build loyalty?
Yeah, I think, one key thing is making sure that they understand what it is that they do well and focusing in on that, because not everybody can do everything well all the time. And so I think the most important thing from a loyalty perspective is not disappointing, not overpromising and under-delivering. So I think that's very important. So understand what you do well and, highlight that and do your best at that and, deliver on it consistently. Cause